Hello. For the cards I'm sharing today, I'm using Sweet Stamp Shop's stamp set called Tequila. And today's card focuses on a card I've done a previous version of before involving a drop shadow. It's a pretty simple effect to create, and I'll show you two ways on how to do it. First, I'm using that main large image to stamp on a piece of white cardstock. I'll also stamp this on the back of a full adhesive post-it, but on the sticky side. So the first way to create a drop shadow is to create a stencil, and I use my scan and cut machine to do this, where I'll cut out the image of what I'll need. And if you don't have this machine, you can do the same thing with a post-it or even a piece of cardstock. You want to make one small cut and cut around the image. So for the post-it, I'm just going ahead and fussy cutting this. For these two cards, I'm starting off with a piece of A2 cardstock, and I want to mark off the middle of the card with the help of my T-ruler. I just wanted the image centered since the other half will have a shadow of this image. And I'll use a larger post-it to mask off one of the halves and erase any pencil marks. And I'll just repeat the process for the second card. For the first card, I decided to use the Distress Ink Peacock Feathers. I'm blending out this color on what will be the bottom of the card where the drop shadow will be. For the second card, I'm using Twisted Citron, and I'll do the same and blend this color out. This one was a little bright, so I added a bit of Mowed Lawn Distress Ink near the middle. Once I'm done with this, I'm leaving the post-it where it is on the card and grabbing the stencil I created with the scan and cut. I'm flipping it over and placing it on the center of the card, and using black soot distress ink, I'm inking this makeshift stencil, heavier near the middle and lighter at the top of the stencil so it has an ombre look. So if you don't have a scan and cut, you'll take that sticky post-it note and place it where you want it. Since you stamped it out on the sticky side, you'll stick it on the bottom of the card, and I'll also add washi tape just to secure it so it stays in place and mask off the rest of the space around the card so it doesn't get inked up. So repeating the process, I add the drop shadow to both of these cards. Once I'm done with this, I'll go ahead and color these in quickly with some Copic markers. And this is a really easy image to color quickly, and I end up coloring these two the same except for the label. For the tequila label, I decided that I wanted to pick Copic colors which match the distress ink I chose to go on the bottom half of the card. I tried to show all the Copic color caps on the screen, but I'll also have them listed below along with all the supplies that I'm using to create this card. This image is large enough to take a focal point on this card, and the drop shadow seems almost like an afterthought, but it's still a very cool, subtle effect for the card that I think anyone can appreciate. I really like the large sentiment in this card, so I wanted to use it right underneath the stamp image and on top of the drop shadow. Since I'm stamping this on top of the distress inks, I decided I wanted to heat emboss the sentiment using white embossing powder. So I'll grab my anti-static powder tool to make sure the embossing powder doesn't cling to unwanted areas and stamp the sentiment using Versamark ink. I'll add the white embossing powder and heat set this with my heat gun. I repeat the same process for the other card, and the Misty stamp positioner is super helpful in this situation, so I can create these two cards that look almost identical. While looking at these almost finished cards, I decided I wanted a pop of color around the cards, so I pulled out some cardstock that matched the distress ink, and I trimmed them down to create top folding card bases. To adhere the main images to the card, I'm using score tape to the back of the images, and once I'm ready, I'll remove the release paper and adhere it directly above the drop shadow. I'll also trim down the two card panels by 1/4 of an inch on the width and length so the card base will pop with that color. To finish off this card, I'm using my tape runner to adhere the front panels to the card bases, and my cards are complete. I'm pretty happy with how these cards turned out, and they're pretty quick and easy. The drop shadows, of course, can get more complicated if you create images with multiple items, but the idea is the same. It's a fun effect to create, so I hope you try it out. Have a great day, and I'll see you next week for another video. Bye!